Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the beautiful painting we'll be painting today. It's a blue heron walking proudly on the beach. It was a photograph from a friend. She posted it on Instagram and said that she would like to have a painting of the blue heron walking on the beach, so that's what we're doing today. And it's a fun little painting. Anyone can do it. It's an easy painting. And so I'd love for you to follow along with me, or even just watch it if that's what you like. It is a long video. I tried to make it as short as possible. I'm sorry that it's so long. I did cut it down a little bit by giving you directions on the different colors to put for the backdrop of the painting, and you can just screenshot that so that you can follow along, have it done beforehand and follow along with me. After you get the base coat on there, then we can start with the waves and the foam in the water and the seaweed and the beautiful bird. So I hope you enjoy this video. Please subscribe and hit like if you like it, and share it with others, please, that might be interested. I look forward to painting with you. Let's get painting. Here's the list I was telling you about. So if you want to prime your canvas and get it ready with these different colors that I have here, I'm going to kind of show you how I did it, but I'm just going in fast motion. So you can prepare this ahead of time and get it ready for the all the details, the fun details we're going to put in, and the adorable little blue heron. Be sure to blend your colors in between each section of paint here we put in. And also don't worry about straight lines, because there's going to be a lot of foam and there's going to be waves and receding waves in this picture. So don't worry about that. And that's not sky you're seeing up there at the top. This is all a close-up of the ocean. Now for the fun details. I'm just going to add some white fluff, which is the wave crashing, and just kind of fluff it around like that. Come down a little bit, make it thicker in areas and thinner in areas. Bring down just a little bit further on the page. So if you want to gallery wrap the painting, make sure that you go onto the sides and the tops. The top and the bottom and the sides of the painting as you go along. And that way you don't have to frame it. You can hang it right on the wall, just like it is. And like I said, I'm not making this completely realistic. I want it to be impressionistic and slightly realistic. So it's not going to be completely impressionistic, because that bird's going to stand out here a bit. But I don't really want the details in the back of the painting to be the main focus of the painting. I want the bird to be the main focus of the painting. And so if you want the same thing, then these are some techniques. So now just very thinly on the brush, I'm going to add a little bit more of the cerulean blue to the white, and just kind of over the top part of this, we're just going to lightly add a little bit of foam, and just take it like, you know, in just kind of in a little zigzaggy fashion. Okay, so I'm gonna put that away, and I'm gonna get a little bit thinner brush for the foam that's a little bit closer, and I'm gonna put that white on there that has a little tiny bit of the phthalo green and blue. Just kind of pull in some of those foamy areas here, and bring them up into this water here. And as it gets a little close to the, you know, to this second area here, it's gonna be a little bit thicker. You can always stop and pause your tutorial and then catch up on each step as you go if you're painting along. Make some nice fluff. Right here, going to be some fluff, and this is the wave that's already crashed, and it's kind of going backwards. You know how that does that on the beach? So it's a little flatter and less fluffy than this one up here. So go ahead and get that in there. Now right here, the wave has receded a little bit, so just take like a little thick layer with your brush and just kind of pull it in a straight line, but sort of zigzag it a little bit so that it's not a completely straight line, but it's where that water is, you know, going backwards, receding. I guess that's what you'd say. Receding. And so here, whoops, here we foamy area kind of meets it sometimes, and then kind of make this line of foam meet that in just some random areas like this. So you see some of the land underneath it, some of the darker wet land underneath it, but the foam would in areas meet that. So I'm going to take this very thin on my brush, on my little small angle brush, 1/4 inch angle, and I'm just going to go under that foam. And again, make sure that you're going in a straight line, but not straight. You want it to zigzag a little bit because you want it to go right under that to create the shadow under that foam. Just bring it right along there, and bring it a little bit under these heavier foam areas, and also up under this layer of foam, just in areas where the foam is not coming down, just like right under these little sections. Okay, and then that's good. Alrighty, and then right here where the water is meeting the land, I'm also going to take that same color very, very, very thin and just kind of go right along this as well. Just kind of zigzag it a little bit so that this, you can see, is the receding water. Kind of go into it a little and then down around. This will be thinner, of course, than this. Just let it bump up into that a little bit. And bring it around. So there's this little soft, tiny bits of foam going there. And you would see some shadow in it as well. So I'm going to take this little brush, but I'm going to take the pointed end, and I'm just going to kind of put some little dark areas up in here like this, and let it go right up into this wet part of the land. And if you feel, it would be easier for you, make sure that you don't go too uniform, so you want to kind of mix it up a little, turn your brush and kind of mix up those lines and strokes a little bit. If you feel like a smaller brush would be better for you, that's fine. And you can add just a teeny bit of texture. We're going to come back and put some white foam over that as well, and take that brush and just put a very fine light coat and just kind of drag it over this back section so that you can kind of see the lighter color underneath it, but that it's also uneven and not such a plain light blue color. You're gonna see, some of these dark colors. So you see how that's a bit more in areas and than in other areas. That's great. So we're just adding a little bit of dark in here, keeping those larger little bits of shadow in the front area towards where it's going to be a bit more foamy. Because now just take your dirty brush, add a little bit of white to that, and then where you added this bit of shadow of foam, just kind of bring in the white. So little bits of foam kind of over those shadows. It's like a layer of and you could use the stippling sort of effect here, and like I said, make sure it's nice and uneven. And just right above this where we put that layer of shadow, you can add just a bit thicker texture on your brush. Just kind of go over it like that. Just keep adding a little bit of texture there. And it can be heavier in areas and lighter in areas. Okay, so now I'm going to take that white mixture that we have, so on the dirty brush, and again I have these darker spots, so I'm just going to kind of pull over a little bit of light over that. You can turn your brush however you want to, and I'm going to kind of glide over it really easy like this. You see how it's making it look like a wet land? So make sure it's very, very light on your brush, and you're just kind of going over that very lightly, letting some of those darks come through, just pulling that over that like that. And see, it looks sort of glassy and wet. So what you're doing here is you're creating the wet sand with it just has a little tiny bit of water over it. Just pull that over. Of this, you want to thicken up this foam a little on this shadowed area, just kind of thicken it up and make it kind of a little bumpy so that it's not anywhere that you would see like a hard line. So just kind of going over those nice little shadows that you put there. But you see what we're doing is we're creating that that foamy area where it went back, receded back into the sea. Okay. And then here we're going to add some some foam up in here as well. But before I do that, I want to take some of that dark mixture, which is the ultramarine blue, some black, and some white. Make it very thin on the brush again, and then just add some, like I did before, just some little darker areas here. Just kind of in and about, and you could take a bigger brush for this if you'd like to, in this area, since it's a larger area. But just add a little bit, want to add a little bit of depth and shadow into before we add over that foam. Okay, so I'm going to now take my white right on that same brush, just take some white. Now I want to add, like we did up here, now this I'm going to take right up into this bigger wave. I'm going to take more of the foam. That's because this wave has come in and crashed, and it's like, you know how you see certain sections of the sea, they kind of meet up differently. Well, this is where one wave had met with the other wave, so there'd be a lot more foam kind of meeting it. So I'm coming right up with that. Just going to bring that foam right up there to this wave. Blend it right into these colors. Soften that up a little bit. I had that a little too distinct. Don't forget your sides. If you would rinse off that brush, and we're going to just take a little bit of the phthalo green, just all by itself on the end of a skinny brush. We'll use a round. Here is a number 10 round. You know, it's just a thin little round brush. You wet that and get your phthalo green, and then just up under, you know, under the crash of the wave, the foam, just kind of put a little bit of shadow under that. And a little bit later we'll drag that phthalo green color made into a glaze with some water. We'll drag that down a little bit more into that under the wave portion of the painting, and brighten that up. It'll be after we put the bird in. Keep the corners a bit on the darker side, so I'm going to mix a little bit of the phthalo blue, and we're just going to add a little dark up here. And then a little bit over here as well, just to kind of help frame out the picture. And take a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm going to add some bits of seaweed here, so just kind of dabble a little here with some texture. Okay, just kind of go like that, just here and there, some bits of seaweed. I'm not going to go much where I have the bird that's going to be standing right in the middle of the picture pretty much, so I'm just going to add some little bits of yellow ochre here and there, and then we can always add a little bit more detail underneath the bird. I'm going to take a little bit of brown, just a regular raw umber, and just going to add that to the seaweed just in little areas. Just kind of turn your brush here and there. Just going to give the impression that there's some seaweed here, and then you could take your tip and just kind of dot it in there. You know how seaweed has these little bubbles like, so you can just kind of put some texture in there to kind of give an indication that maybe there's some of those little bubbles, and there's the shadow from the bubbles. And when I was a little girl, we used to go down to the beach in Massachusetts, and we would pop the bubbles of the seaweed. It was really fun. So much fun we had as kids. So I'm just kind of bringing some of that yellow ochre, just little areas here where there might be a little bit, tiny bit more. Let's have a little coming in from the side, and maybe a little bit down here. That'll darken up that corner a bit. A little bit there. Bring it around the side. Okay. So I have a little pencil sketch here. You could use chalk or a watercolor pencil. That's what I used. And I'm just using a 1/4 inch round, and I'm going to fill this in with a little bit of a bluish gray. So I'm taking a little cerulean blue, mixing it with white, and black, and I'm just making a really dark gray to fill in the body of the bird, and then we come in and put the definition in later. Okay, so I'm going to make the shape of the body is just like an oval, but that it comes to a point. So we're just gonna, you can just take your paintbrush and do this. The legs are about the distance from the bottom of the foot to the body is about the same distance, just a little bit off from the bottom of the body to the top of the head. So in making your oval shape, you can see it's just a little below the wave on the top, and it comes downward towards the right hand facing side of the canvas, almost to the foamy wave on the bottom section there. And then that oval is going to come to a point. You're going to see little tail feathers sticking out there. We're going to fill in the neck area. So it comes up from the body, right out of the body. Go ahead and I'm going to have you sketch that in. Okay, and it kind of billows out here, and it goes up kind of straight. We're going to paint this whole thing in with this brown color. This is like just the base color. Okay, and then the neck is a little narrow in through here, but then it widens out here and connects with, not all the way to the top of this oval, but it comes almost to the top. Okay, and then here you're going to just bend in a little bit and then up. This needs to be a little bit thicker. You know, there's all different ways that this bird, you know, the proportions of the neck, it's however they bend it, you know, however they happen to bend it. But this is more narrow up here. And then we are going to paint the top of his little head, and you can just put a circle there. That makes it easy for you. Okay, and then I'm going to rinse up that brush, put that in here and get my a smaller angle brush, because I want to go ahead and put this beak in, and I'm just going to do it with the brown color. And need to get a little closer to this. It's kind of hard to go at this angle, but it's a long beak, of course, you know. And we'll just bring it right up to the little face, and then straight down here. Okay, so you just have that blocked in, and now down here, his back leg is about an inch from where the body meets the neck. Make that meet up a little better, and I'm just going to put like a little triangle right there, kind of going down, and color that in. So that's just the top part of his little thigh area. Okay, and then I'm going to lighten that up. Just add a little titanium white, and then just pull this down much thinner than the top part of the leg. And then there's like this little joint here. So you could just take the end of your brush, make like a little round joint there. And then make just one line up to the joint, and then kind of thicken it up a bit. And I'm actually going to make his thigh a bit larger, a little bit thicker. Okay. And then his feet. I'm just going to make 3. And I'm actually going to just make 3 little areas there. And then I'm actually going to have seaweed in front of this so that you don't have to get too crazy on these feet. Okay, so this back one come just about, it's actually going to meet up, but it's coming from underneath. So we're going to go like this. This is the back leg. And then that little triangle is going to go towards the side of the canvas, like this. Because that little leg will come down above this little knuckle here, his little knee joint. His little knee for the back leg will be right about here, because it's going to, this portion of his leg is going to go straight. So then we make this little knee. And the funny thing about these knuckles, it's like they're high on one end and a little lower on the other. Like, okay, so here you see this knuckle back there, and then it's like a lower part of the knuckle there, and then the bottom part of his leg. And don't bring it down quite as far as this one. And all I'm gonna do on this is just two showing, okay? And I'm gonna have seaweed and everything there. Alrighty, so now we've got the beginning of our little bird. We'll make his head just a little bit taller. And this bird in this picture that my friend took on the beach, he had such a little proud little stance, so it's so cute. He looks so proud. And I'm gonna make that beak a little straighter. Okay, so there you have the beginning of the bird. So we're gonna take our 1/4 inch angle brush, and we're going to get this parchment color, which is like a creamy beige color and has a little bit of a yellow undertone to it. Add a little bit of that brown that we have on there. And for the front part, for the front part of this little guy, we're going to paint that in with a little bit darker color brown. And kind of go in the direction of the feathers. Make sure they meet up there. And they have these funny little feathers in the front that look like they're black and white. They stick out in the front, so we'll put those on in a little bit. Okay, and it kind of bumps up here where he's bending his little neck. Take that beige color parchment, mix in with that brownish color, and just kind of pull some of that into here. Leaving the dark around the edge there, so it's kind of like more in the middle and going towards the side. Okay, and now we're going to take that parchment color and a little bit of white to lighten it up to make a very light beige. And again, you could go ahead and wash your brush off if you want to, but if you don't want to, don't worry about it. Okay, and I'm just going to take and pull in some really bright highlights over here. And here. And it has to be darker than, it has to be beige because the white wouldn't stand out against this wave back here. So make sure you have plenty of color in that. And it comes into the body because this wing is kind of going over a little bit. So I'm going to make a bit of a triangle here. And then where these two wings sort of meet up, there's like a top layer which will have feathers kind of coming down. So take this brownish color, this beige color, and bring it right into that little triangle, almost like the top of a heart, and just kind of paint that in there and bring it right into this part of the neck and lighten it up. And we'll come back and add some of those funny little feathers that they have. So now I'm just kind of adding a little bit of a feathery look here where the neck turns. Make it brighter in here. and his little head. Right to about here. There's like a little, almost like a little chubby cheek. And pull it right over into that head a little bit. And then this top part has a nice pretty blue on it. So I'm going to take and add a bit more white to that light mixture. Dry my brush off because it's getting a little thick. If yours is getting a little thick, just take your paper towel and just wipe it off on your paper towel. And right here, I'm going to make sure that there's feathery looking texture. So it looks like feathers. And there's going to be a little bit of black or dark gray, kind of like a bluish black coming out from these feathers. So that's going to help it stand out against these waves. So you can go ahead and get your brush, okay, and right along this, right along the edge of his little neck, you're going to kind of go in between. And believe it or not, they're kind of thick looking, these little black fluffy hairs. And I'll show you, first of all, let's just get this edge and then I'm going to show you. And don't do them all super uniform, have some maybe kind of turning upward a little bit. And then here, make it a little bit thicker ones as it kind of meets the body. And then we're going to have some long feathers. And bring it right up this little part of his little neck. Just kind of pull it right into over that wave. And see, now it's really standing out against the wave. It's looking cute. And it kind of goes up his little, where it turns here, but make sure you kind of go upwards here and then make it turn. So you know how when you see like a bird's feather turning, then it has like this little fluffy look to their feather. Make sure you have that. And we'll add a little bit of white if you got a little bit too much black like I did there, we'll just add a little white. So I'm going to make it turn with the neck. Kind of coming in there like that. Okay. Bring it right down. Okay, and also a little bit on this turn, kind of bring some going this way. And you can make those a bit more random, how they kind of meet together. Okay. So mix some phthalo blue and Mars black for the top of his head, these feathers. It comes from the beak area, it goes up here, like this. And then it comes down, and then his little eye, I'm going to paint this in here, and his little eye goes right about here. But we're going to get this little dark color in the top of his head and bring it right down like a little crown, like this. And also a tiny bit more here, goes down. And some of them are quite long, like that. And sometimes if you see these birds, they have them opened up. I'm going to add a little bit more blue. Just going to pull one from the other side. One little feather showing there. Really going to come right to the beak, and I'm going to make that beak a bit larger. So I'm going right to the beak, and I'm pulling a little white crown. I should have a bit more contrast there in the back, and I might, what I'll do is I'll add a little more blue to that water back there so that this crown shows up a bit more. But just make sure the top of his little head, very difficult to go from this direction, but I want you all to be able to see everything. Okay, little crown. And then take some of that white, mix it into that little parchment, and we're gonna put just a teeny little bit of white kind of coming up here into like this. Okay, and then we're gonna go ahead and put his eye in. And the eye is, I'm just gonna, for now, I'm just gonna put a little round dot for his eye. Okay, and then right under his little eye, I'm gonna give him this, so here's the beak, and it gets a little bit chubby, a little bit like a little cheek, kind of goes like this. You put a little more white and let that stand out. If you can follow me, we're just putting a little bit of definition into this little face. And we're going to pull that into the beak a little bit. And then underneath, there also is a section of white, and it meets up with this, and then kind of leave the bottom a bit more brown so that you can, actually see it against the water. So when you're painting yours, maybe you'd like to go ahead and make the water up in that area a bit bluer. So that it would stand out more. I'm gonna probably have to go back and add maybe glaze some blue there. So just kind of make some little feathery marks into this beige part of the fur. And kind of pull some of these little white feathers, like I said, in between. If you look at pictures of the blue herons, it's so pretty. They have that little, fluffy area where they have the white mixed in with the black. It's very distinct. It sticks out really prominently. And they also have like a really dark feather area right there, which I'll get into. But Try not to cover over all your little black marks. Just kind of add some feathers kind of in between. And in this area, kind of going down into this fur, and bring it right down like this. So I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow ochre and mix a little bit of cad yellow in there to brighten it up a bit. And I'm going to make this beak much straighter coming out here. Here, coming from his eye. It, I did put a little tiny rough sketch of proportions, but I really didn't take a lot of time on that. So if you want to, you could always screenshot the final painting and then use it to draw a picture if you'd like. So let's color this beak in, kind of leave that bottom dark. I'm going to add a brighter, some orange down there. This to be a little bit longer, just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to take a little tiny bit of cad orange and mix it into that mix. Just add a little bit of orange down here and up into it, just to give it a little character. A little tiny bit up there. Okay. And I'm going to take my yellow mixture and I'm going to go around the eye. So it's just a little eye. The yellow, just go ahead and color it all in. And they just have like this little beady little pupil thing there. Okay, take a little bit of the blue and right here around this part of the eye is a bit more of this beautiful blue color. And it kind of goes, for this heron anyway, it kind of goes right into his beak, but not super solid. So I'm just putting a little bit there and bringing a little in to this part of his beak. Take a little tiny bit of black and go around his eye. It's like a really deep set eye. I kind of went over my yellow a bit, so I might have to wait for it to dry, and I'll put a little bit more yellow back in there. Okay, and the blue, that pretty blue, you can mix a little bit into that black mixture, but keep it mostly blue. Kind of comes under his eye. feathers a little bit like this, just feathers it a little bit out. And then it comes like this. And a little into that beak. And now I'm going to take some bright blue and I'm going to pull this with some feathery strokes right here. And I'm adding ultramarine to that little blue-black mixture and brightening that up a bit. Along the edge of this, you're going to add some bright blue here. And bring it right down to under the body. And kind of feather up some of that blue up into this feather area, just kind of. And don't forget, we're not making this photorealistic, so just, you know, just add a little bit of texture up there. And then a lot of this under feathers here is blue. There's another kind of blue, another kind of heron that doesn't have so much blue on it, and I don't know what they're called, but my husband sees those. He works on a golf course and he sees those a lot more than he does these beautiful blue herons, and he sees a lot of sandhill cranes in his job. So on this little back section of feathers, there's some blue feathers there too. So go ahead and just put a little bit of that in there. And I'm right now just using ultramarine blue mixed with a tiny little bit of black, but it's mostly the blue. Okay, and then just add a little light coat of it here on top of the gray. Just kind of brighten up this entire calf area. Leaving the sides a bit darker so that you can see the legs against the light background. Just kind of color that in with the titanium white, the parchment color, and the yellow ochre. And then you're going to go on down to about here with this light color. You can leave the knuckle dark. And I'll show you, we're just going to put a little accent on that later, but now on this bottom, this particular blue heron, some of them have like a pinky hue to the leg, but this one doesn't. It has a grayish. So I'm just taking that same brush that I have there and I'm just adding a little bit of black, and then I'm going to take it and not be super solid about it, just add a little bit here to this, and then pull it down into the foot like that, and just make the 3-low prong, and don't worry about going over the web with the black, just kind of do that just with those 3. Okay. And like I said, I do want to have some seaweed here, so we don't have to get too fussy on those feet. And do this little web, this little toe, and bring it right up this leg. darken this knuckle a little bit. While you have that on your brush, kind of go in here and just darken up this knuckle a little bit, but not too dark on this front leg, just a little. And then I'm just going to bring this up into this calf a little bit, or whatever that is. Okay, and then this part underneath, because that would be shadowed, it is a bit darker on this under this back leg, so this will help the person looking at it that is the back leg. And take a little bit of that dark, and on the top portion of this upper part of his leg, I guess it's his thigh, just go ahead and add a bit dark there to the top portion of it, but not all the way down. Okay. Rinse off your brush and get some of that creamy color to do this portion of this leg. And if you feel like you got it a little bit too heavy, you know, his legs, you can always go back and correct that. I'm going to put a little bit of lighter here in the middle. And when you have the light in the middle, it actually helps it round things to look rounder. So you see, it gives it a little bit of height right there on the middle. So I'm taking a little bit of titanium white on that brush that has the parchment, and I'm just adding a little light on the middle parts of these legs. Okay, and here just a tiny bit of light, just a tiny bit. And just a little bit here, just a little highlight, and a little bumps here for highlight to let us know that these are kind of knobby little knuckly. And so this part of his little back is the feathers are small, and they're kind of, so you could just add a little bit of texture, a little bit of feathers going like this. And make sure that you kind of pull a couple into the front of this that cute little thing that they have there. So just add a few, and every once in a while you can put a little white on there just to kind of make that stand out. And then they start to go downward. So just from here to like here, it's down, and you'll just do all that all the way to here. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more white so it stands out a bit more. So all of this is long downward feathers like this, all the way down. Okay. And then underneath, we're going to make this look just kind of soft and fluffy here, but we'll need some of the feathers to go over the blue. And so right here, it's like long feathers. And you just want to see some of that blue popping through there. They get a little thicker, sort of towards the bottom here. And then to show the differentiation of this and this, go in this direction. Doesn't that look pretty, how that's showing up the blue underneath? And then another layer, let's see, comes like this. Go over that little blue thing a little bit. because it's kind of underneath. It's a funny little thing. Okay, pull a little feather there. And then here, there is another layer of feathers under this one that kind of goes in this direction. And they are thicker feathers. So let's go. So some of these stand out. Like that. Okay. Right here, it gets a little brighter. There's a little bright section. Okay, so take a little tiny bit of white again and just kind of highlight these little skinny feathers. And bring these down a bit more. So you see it's like these layers of feathers. Now down here on the tail, just going to do very thin little layers and kind of pull it over some of that blue just so it looks realistic. Okay. Now just right above his eye, and take that light color and just put one little section of light like that. Kind of flare it out a little bit. And then brighten this up, kind of round it a little. Under here, I'm going to have to give it some shadow so that it stands out a bit as, you know, like there's this rounded area, so you need a little definition underneath. And to here, where his little face is sort of rounded. And whoops, made that a little bit too much. Ooh, that blended in good. So here, just adding a little bit of definition here, and I'm pulling a little bit of that, whoops, bluish gray color into these little feathers here. But keeping that light. This is more beige. Up here, this is all more beige, so I don't want to lighten that up with too much gray. But I just wanted to put a little bit of shadow definition there. Alrighty. What do you think? I think he looks kind of cute, but I have to do a little bit more on that beak up at the top. And I'm going to take some of that dark blue and I'm going to make those little feathers. Highlight them a little bit. And but it really needs to stay dark though, because they are very dark. flip this over so we can get a nice fine feather. There, whatever it takes, right? Okay, and now I'm going to take a little bit of that blue because I'd kind of like to lighten these up. I didn't make them quite bluish black enough, these little funny feathers. And I want to make them kind of going a little more uneven. I'm going to bring a little bit of white back on that one. It got a little bit too thick with the blue. Get a little bit of white. Put that back in there. So I'm adding a little thickness to my white portions. So that's kind of where these little feathers kind of, where this neck turns and they kind of flare out. So over here I'm just going to add a little bit to help those meet up. And for those really tiny, skinny little hairs, I'm going to take my filbert grainer brush, and it's really thin, and I'm just going to add some really skinny little white. Here, there we go. Making your paint really wet. Like I said, it just helps it to, helps you control the little skinny lines. Yeah, there we go. Now we're making some little skinny ones. Pull some out in this direction of this tail. Wet the paint. Put some white on there. These are the thicker feathers. Now, I feel like my legs got to be a little bit chubby, so I'm actually gonna, since this is white wave, I'm actually gonna take and thin that little leg out. See how easy it is to fix that? And here, just kind of trim it up. Too bad we couldn't trim our bodies up that quickly, huh? I'm going to add a little tiny bit of highlight to this section of the leg. Just kind of brighten it up a little bit. Add a little tiny bit of feathers coming into this blue section. And I was going to go around and brighten up his eye where I had to wait until it dried. Go around this little pupil. Get nice and round. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that yellow, mix it with white. I'm going to make a dark line here. Separation of the beak. Put a bit of a creamy color. Okay, I'm gonna stop for a minute. Okay, I don't know what happened, but I came back to, I had stepped back to look at my picture, turned off the film, and then I came back and I was explaining a correction I was making on my painting, and it didn't film it. I think somebody was calling through or something, and it didn't film it. So I'm just gonna tell you what I did. I had looked at the picture and I thought something looks wrong proportionally. So I wanted to show you how easy it is to make these adjustments. And I thickened the neck and I thickened the area that connects the neck to the back, and I brought it a little bit thicker around here. And I'm also going to take it and make it a bit thicker right up through here and brighten that up a little bit. And I'm going to make his head just a teeny bit taller, and his beak a little bit longer, and then I think we'll have a beautiful little bird. And I also was taking some of the brown to pull it in because I wanted the this part of the bird has a lot more of the beige and the brown feathers, and then on their body they have the gray. But I wanted to pull a little bit of that into, am I filming? Yes. Into this, just to kind of harmonize these colors a little bit, what we got going on here. So there's some of that under there, just so that you know, it kind of goes together a bit more when you add just a little bit of that brown throughout. I also took and made with the gray mixture, I made his back, and I just feel like it should be just a little bit higher even now. I made that a bit higher. So does that make sense to you guys? And I need to make that gray. So I'm gonna take that mixture and it was the blue and the parchment and the black, and add some of those feather textures in here. And add a little bit of white. Do you agree? Let me know what you think. this bird needed that little bit more thickness on his neck. And on his back. And now I think that proportionately it looks better. So that's the wonderful thing about acrylic paint. You just have so much versatility. You know, if you make a mistake in any way and it's not proportionately looking right, then you know, you just go back in and make the correction, and you know, that looks so much better. Now I am gonna thicken up this part of his neck a little tiny bit, you see, and that looks so much better, guys. That looks so much better. It's so fun to paint with acrylic paint because, you know, you can do these things. So just the finishing touches. So we're going to take a little bit of the phthalo green, and I'm just going to make a bit of a glaze with that. And I'm going to kind of darken up here in this shadowed area. Should be a little bit darker than just that one little skinny line I had there. In there. Just kind of bringing it up in the wave fashion there. So this is just watered down phthalo green. In there. When I looked at the picture, I just felt like it was, you know, I'd gotten kind of lost. So that's all I want to do there. Just darken that up a little bit. And then just in little parts of this frothy, foamy water, and just bringing a little bit of that down into it in the direction of the wave, so the wave would be crashing like this. Just a little bit of that color and bringing it right down into here. Just a little bit. And I wanted to kind of darken up so that that head pops out a little bit more. And I also want to take, well, you can use that same brush and take a little tiny bit of cerulean blue and some water just to kind of make a glaze again, just to darken up a tiny little bit without covering all that we've done. I just would like to make this a little bluer around there. I'm going to put a little bit more water. I don't want to get out the glazing medium for this because I just want to kind of brighten up this water a little. I mean this, yeah, the foamy water back here. Just a little bit around his face. Just taking that color and just kind of glazing it in here just so that his little face pops out a bit more. And I'm just going underneath his beak. And just kind of take your finger and just blend that out, because that's the nice thing, like I said, about acrylic, because you can always make little adjustments. So just so that that fur kind of stands out, just kind of darken it around that bird, and also up around the top of the painting, Just bring a little bit of that blue up there, and just little splashes here and there. Just so it all harmonizes. I'm also going to take a tiny little bit, and I want that wave to kind of stand out a bit more too up here, so I'm just bringing a little bit around where the foam of that wave is, because I found that I had it a bit too light. So I just darken that up a little bit. So that stands out, and then I'm going to put a few little splashes. I'm also going to take that little cerulean wash, and I'm going to add a tiny bit to just above. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that, but I am going to put some splashes on that, so don't worry about it if you do bump into it. Just a little bit, and I don't want to make it heavy, but I just want to bring in a little bit darker so that that pops out a bit more. See, after you work on a painting for a while, you can step back and look at it and see, you know, where maybe you need just a little bit more of a certain color. Then I just want to kind of bring a little of that up in there. And maybe just a little wavy fashion, so that all these sections blend together nicely. And I kind of like it to stand out a bit more against this bird's back. So I'm just adding a little bit, not to cover in all of the foam that we've added in there. I don't want to cover that all up. I just want this little bit of foam to kind of stand out a bit more. And actually to add just a few little shadows here and there in the foam. Just take your brush with that glaze and just kind of add a couple of dark values in here, just here and about. You don't have to try to follow exactly what I'm doing, but see how that just added some shadow value in there. I'm going to take just some white. I'm just adding some little splashes coming down off that wave, going over the shadows, just a little splashes. Because remember, we're keeping this very impressionistic looking, so we don't want to be too detailed, but we definitely need to have some splashy motion going on here. Keep it in mind that the wave's going like that. And so up here we'll have some splashes too, coming up around over that shadow. Take your small end and just make some little splashes up there. And just a few here. So this wave's kind of crashing down this way, but the water underneath, you would see the shadows, but you would see some splashing going on there. And right up here, this little section got some heavy shadows. Just add some splashes here. Keep it, and if you want to, like I am trying to do, keep it very light and not super duper detailed, just so you have you know, the idea that there's a wave splashing there, but not super detailed, because like I said, we don't want the background to be the focal point of the painting. Just that bird should be what stands right out. Make sure that your splashes kind of go in different areas here and there, different directions. You can put it a little thicker in your brush, on your brush. So that's good. That's all I need. Now I wanted to also put a few little splash areas here on this little wave. This was like the, you know, part that just crashed up on the beach that's receding partly already. But we definitely want some little bit of splashes going on here. Make them round. Just the idea that there's some splashes up from this foam area. Okay. And just for the texture, just bring a little bit down in here and there. And that's all I want to do there. And you do however much you feel good. I'm just putting a little texture kind of going for the wave is breaking. I just wanted it to look a little bit thicker in areas. Just kind of, the thickness kind of adds to the interest of the painting. Just kind of get that going in the direction of the wave. And so I'm just kind of hopping around doing that. And then I we had already put like a layer of foam down here, but I'm just adding a little bit more thickness now that it's dried. And you can go back and do that as well. And bringing it close up to that little leg helps those legs to stand out. Okay, just add some thickness there. Just here and there. Okay, so now while you have the white on your brush, I'm going to pull just a couple little crazy hairs, kind of coming, little skinny, crazy little skinny hairs. So keep it real thin on your brush. And if you don't have a wet spot over there, you can lean if you need to, if you have a bit of a shaky hand. So these little hairs just kind of come crazy, you know, sticking out like that. And then right here. Just a few brighter hairs. I'm going to brighten up this spot a little, have maybe a few little crazy flyaway hairs going there. Right around this line here. And I'm taking a little bit of the burnt raw umber and yellow ochre, and I'm just going to make some more seaweeds down here. So let's make it a little thicker with the yellow ochre and with the brown. We're just going to kind of pull that in around so he's standing in like a thick pad of seaweed. Leave some sand in between, but every once in a while it can drop a little bit of texture there, and just kind of add some seaweed, kind of bring your brush and turn it sort of every which way, kind of bring it up by these feet here. Little yellow ochre. So he is walking in a very seaweedy section. So we need to add a little bit more interest to that sand area. So I put just the raw umber there, and I'm just kind of making some of those little dots for shadow of the bubbles like we did earlier in the picture. Just a few little bumps on there. Keeping it just very impressionistic. And I'm going to bring some down here and actually just kind of pull a little color in there, frame out the picture so that it kind of anchors it a bit, so it's not just really light there at the bottom. I'm going to bring this in a little bit. Okay, and the only real shadowy area is, all you see is just a little bit of shadow. This part of the day, you're just going to see a little bit darker here in the land, just a little bit, and that's just his body kind of cast in a little shadow here on the ground. So just make it a bit darker there, and pull some of these little sand colors up in here, but don't go over what you did on the water. Just pulling a bit of interest into the sand. And after I'm all done with the painting, I'll go, add and make sure that those sides all match up there. That's really all we need for the shadow. I want to add a little bit more seaweed up in here and around this little foot. Okay, a little bit of dark. Just a little bit of raw umber there underneath different areas. And then you can take a tiny bit of white, a little bit of the parchment color, and just kind of highlight a few of these little seaweeds. Just with a few little light dots. Just to add an impression of and a little bit more interest. And I'm just going to take my thing and just kind of drag it across, kind of like we did up here in the water, just to add areas of little footprints and a little bit more interest there. Alright, so I don't want to do too much. I'm going to do one more little thing. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow ochre and white, now that we darkened up here, and I just want to put that really thin on the brush, and I just want to darken up his little beak so it stands out a bit more. So I just took yellow ochre, a little bit of white, I'm going to pull that down in, and I am going to take a little bit of the white, the yellow ochre and white up there like that, and kind of smush it around a little bit. I'm going to put, now that we've got the blue up there, I'm just going to bring that crown a little whiter up here on the crown. Whoa, got a little heavy. See, now that we made it darker, that little white crown stands up a bit better. And I kind of went over the blue a little too much, so I'm going to take a little bit more of this phthalo blue and just kind of straighten that out a little bit. Okay. Just kind of brighten these little areas. I am going to take one little dot of white and put a little sparkle in the pupil, just a little tiny sparkle. And then I'm going to take the white and just go right along the bottom. And also take this white kind of just so it stands out a bit more. Okay, that's it, guys. So I'm going to take a little bit of blue, a little bit of white, and down here I'm going to make my paint thin, and I'm going to sign my name. And I always print my name. Make your paint thin, watery. My name. Robin. Robin Landau. How do you guys like to sign your paintings? I wish when I started painting that I would have created a bit more of an interesting signature, but I didn't. And so I just kind of stick with this because it's what I've been doing all along. And you know, sometimes artists after a while they get you know, people recognize their signature, so I don't really want to change it up right now. I might one day though, who knows. So anyway, that's it, guys. Enjoy your painting, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.